crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with energy, its towering spires reflecting the light of 100 alien suns. Holographic sigils of member species pulsed above the central dais, casting shifting colors across the armored forms of the delegates. Ambassador Elias Vance stood alone at the center, his human frame dwarfed by the massive Zapirian and Vorac representatives flanking him. His polished dress shoes clicked against the glass-like floor as he adjusted his tie, a nervous habit he'd never quite shaken. High Prelate Exarath's armored carapace clacked as he rose from his elevated seat, his 4 glowing eyes fixed on Elias. The Federation has reached its decision. His voice boomed through the chamber's acoustics, designed to amplify his species' natural resonance. After thorough review of Earth's petition, the Council votes to deny humanity full membership status. A murmur rippled through the gathered delegates. Elias kept his face neutral, though his fingers twitched toward the data chip hidden in his pocket. Councillor Vexis of the Vorac Dominion slithered forward on her segmented limbs, her chitinous plates rasping against each other. "The assessment is unanimous," she hissed. "Human technology remains inferior by every measurable standard. Your ships lack proper shielding. Your weapons are primitive kinetic throwbacks. You bring nothing of value to the Federation." Elias felt the weight of hundreds of alien eyes upon him. Some bore expressions he recognized: pity from the mammalian Seti, amusement from the avian Crix. Most showed nothing at all, their alien physiologies unreadable to human senses. Exarath's mandibles twitched in what Elias had learned was the Zapirian equivalent of a smirk. "Let the record show," he declared, "that humanity is not ready for the stars. Your species has yet to master even basic plasma containment, much less the technologies required for true interstellar cooperation." A holographic display flickered to life above the dais, showing side comparisons of human and Zapirian warships. The sleek, organic curves of the alien vessels made the blocky human designs look like children's toys. "Floating scrap metal," Zorath said, gesturing at the image. "Your so-called fleet wouldn't last minutes against even our border patrols." Elias took a slow breath. He'd prepared for this moment for years. "With respect, High Prelate," he said, keeping his voice measured, "technological advancement isn't the sole measure of a civilization's worth." Vexis let out a chittering laugh. "Spoken like a true primitive, the strong survive human. The weak become footnotes in history." She turned to address the chamber. "The Vorac Dominion moves that Earth be classified as a protectorate species, to be monitored until such time as they develop. If they develop sufficiently to object." Elias' voice cut through the chamber with unexpected force. Silence fell. Even the ever-present hum of the Council's energy fields seemed to quiet. Zorath's eyes narrowed. "You object." Elias reached into his pocket, his fingers brushing the data chip. "Not yet," he told himself. "I object on behalf of the 12 billion citizens of Earth," he said. "We've met every requirement for associate membership. Our scientists have contributed to—" "Your scientists?" Zorath interrupted. "What have they produced?" "Fireworks to amuse our younglings." Laughter echoed through the chamber. Elias recognized the sound from his first days at the academy, the same mocking tones human students endured across the galaxy. Councillor Vexis raised a clawed limb. "Enough, the vote is final. Humanity's petition is denied for a standard galactic cycle. Perhaps in 50 of your years you'll have something worth presenting." She turned away, already dismissing him. Elias felt the weight of the data chip in his pocket. Earth Command's orders had been clear: only reveal their hand if absolutely necessary. He watched as the delegates began to disperse, their conversations already moving to other matters. A Zapirian aide brushed past him, deliberately knocking his shoulder. "Watch your step, soft skin," the warrior muttered, his breath hot and metallic. Elias straightened his jacket. He'd been patient, they all had. For decades, humanity had played the role of the eager, backward species, absorbing every insult, every condescending lesson from their so-called superiors. As he turned to leave, a CT delegate caught his arm. "Don't take it to heart," the furry diplomat whispered. "The Zapirians were just as harsh with my people when we first joined." Elias forced a smile. "Thank you, Counselor, but I think my people are done being the galaxy's punching bag." Outside the chamber, the observation deck offered a stunning view of Cententrum Prime's rings. Elias leaned against the railing, watching the traffic of 1,000 worlds flit between the orbital platforms. Somewhere out there, human freighters carried their unremarkable cargo between the stars, their true purpose hidden beneath layers of careful deception. His comm unit buzzed. A coded message from Earth Command. Just 3 words. "Stand by Phase 2 imminent." Elias allowed himself a small, private smile. Let them laugh now. Soon enough, the entire galaxy would learn the truth. Humanity hadn't been left behind. They'd been lying in wait. The data chip felt heavier than ever in his pocket. Inside it held schematics, fleet dispositions, weapon specs, everything the Federation thought humanity incapable of producing. A shadow fell across him. Zorath loomed at his side, his massive frame blocking the light from the chamber behind them. "You took the rejection better than I expected, human," the prelate rumbled. "Most species beg when faced with their own irrelevance." Elias met the alien's glowing gaze without flinching. "We'll see who is begging when the time comes, High Prelate." Exarath's mandibles twitched again. Brave words from a species that can't even power a proper shield generator. He turned to leave, then paused. "Oh, and Ambassador, don't bother returning for the next session. The Council has more important matters than entertaining primitive fantasies." Elias watched the massive alien stride away, his armored carapace gleaming in the artificial light. He waited until Zorath had disappeared into the crowd before tapping his comm unit. "Vance to Earth, Command," he whispered. "The bait has been taken, they're coming." The response crackled through instantly. "Understood. All stations report ready. Let them think we're weak a little longer." Elias turned back to the viewport, watching the dance of stars beyond. Somewhere out there, hidden in the dark between systems, Earth's true fleet waited. And soon, very soon, the galaxy would learn what humanity was truly capable of. The spaceport hummed with activity, a chaotic symphony of alien languages and clanking machinery. Captain Ryan Blake adjusted his uniform collar as he walked past rows of docked ships, the USN Defiant standing out among them like a battered old soldier. Its blocky utilitarian design drew sneers from the sleek, organic curves of the Zapirian warships nearby. "Look at that," a deep voice rumbled behind him. Blake turned to see Commander Krell, his chitinous armor gleaming under the harsh station lights. The Zapirian officer towered over him, 4 arms crossed in obvious amusement. "I didn't realize the Federation allowed museum pieces to dock here." Blake forced a smile. "She's got character." Krell's mandibles twitched in what passed for laughter among his kind. "Character won't save you in a real fight. Those railguns of yours are relics. No shields, no plasma lances, just kinetic slugs, pathetic." A group of Zapirian crewmen nearby chuckled, their antennae flicking with mockery. Blake's own crew, humans in simple grey fatigues, glared but said nothing. They'd endured this for weeks. Krell leaned in, his breath smelling of something acidic. "Tell me, Captain, have your people even seen a proper warship before? Or do you still think hiding behind asteroids counts as strategy?" Blake's fingers twitched toward the datapad at his belt. "We manage," Krell repeated, rolling the word like it was a joke. "Let's put that to the test, Simulation Bay, my fleet against yours. Let's see how long your character lasts." The challenge hung in the air. Blake could feel the eyes of both crews on him. Refusing would only confirm their beliefs. Accepting meant humiliation, unless he met Krell's gaze. "You're on." The simulation chamber was a vast, domed room, its walls lined with holographic projectors. Blake strapped into the command chair, his fingers flying over the controls as the Defiance's virtual bridge materialized around him. Across the tactical display, Krell's fleet shimmered into existence. 12 sleek Zapirian cruisers, their energy signatures pulsing with lethal potential. "Begin," the system announced. Krell struck first. A wave of plasma torpedoes streaked toward the Defiance, their trails burning blue against the black. Blake didn't flinch. Evasive pattern delta fire countermeasures. The Defiance lurched, its thrusters flaring as it dodged the initial salvo. The railguns spun up, their barrels glowing red. Hot, target their lead ship, Blake ordered. Full barrage. The Defiance shuddered as the railguns unleashed a storm of tungsten slugs. Krell's shields flared but held. Predictable. Krell's voice crackled over the comm. You really think brute force will? Blake cut him off, now. The Defiance's ventral hull split open, revealing rows of jury-rigged EP charges. They detonated in a silent burst, and Krell's fleet stuttered, their systems flickering. What? Ramming speed, Blake said calmly. The Defiance plowed into the nearest cruiser, its reinforced prow smashing through the weakened shields. Alarms blared as the virtual ship erupted in flames. Krell's remaining vessels wheeled, disoriented. Blake didn't give them time to recover. Launch drones pattern gamma. A swarm of tiny, agile drones erupted from the Defiance's bays, their paths erratic, unpredictable. They latched onto Krell's ships, overloading systems, hacking fire control. One by one, the cruisers died. The simulation ended with a deafening silence. The chamber lights brightened, revealing Krell's stunned expression. His mandibles worked soundlessly. Blake unstrapped himself and stood. You were saying about relics. Krell's claws flexed. Cheap tricks. Real battles aren't fought in simulations. Neither are real wars, Blake said, brushing past him. But if you'd like a rematch with live ammunition, just say the word. The Zapirian crewman backed away as Blake's team followed him out. Their shoulders squared for the first time in months. One of the younger ensigns whispered, Sir, did we just? Blake smirked. We just made them regret underestimating us. Behind them, Krell snarled into his comm. Get me fleet command. Now the war room aboard the Vorac dreadnought Dreadclaw hummed with subdued energy. The dim crimson lighting casting long shadows across the star maps. Admiral Lyra Voss stood at the central holotable, her chitinous fingers tracing the projected trajectories of human colonies. The markers glowed a soft blue designated low threat by Federation intelligence. Pathetic, she muttered, mandibles clicking in disdain. They actually believed we wouldn't notice their little stunt. Across the table, her tactical officer, Subcommander Krax, adjusted the display. The human ship Defiance defeated Commander Krell in the simulation. Their tactics were unorthodox. Voss snorted, a wet, guttural sound. A fluke. Their ships are glorified cargo haulers with guns bolted on railguns. Kinetic weapons. It is like fighting with rocks. The door hissed open, and Elias Vance stepped inside, his human frame dwarfed by the armored Vorac guards flanking him. His face was unreadable, hands clasped behind his back. Admiral, he said, voice calm, I'd advise against this course of action. Voss turned, her multi-faceted eyes glinting. Ah, the primitive speaks. Come to beg for mercy before we reduce your colonies to slag. Elias didn't flinch. I'm here to deliver a warning. Turn your fleet around. You don't know what we've built. Laughter rippled through the Vorac officers. Krax leaned forward, his voice dripping with mock concern. Oh, and what have you built? Human more scrap metal. Elias ignored him, locking eyes with Voss. You're walking into a trap. Voss slammed a fist on the table, the impact rattling the holodisplays. Enough. Your species has insulted the Federation for the last time. We will burn your worlds until you learn your place. Elias sighed, reaching into his pocket. The guards tensed, but he only produced a small data chip. Then you leave me no choice. He tossed it onto the table. This is Earth's final offer. Play it before you jump to Sol. Voss sneered, snatching up the chip. A last plea for mercy. How quaint. Elias turned to leave, pausing at the door. It's not a plea, it's a courtesy. The moment the door sealed behind him, Krax scoffed. Arrogant vermin. Voss crushed the chip in her claw. We proceed as planned. The Dreadclaw and 12 battleships will jump to Sol. I want their so-called homeworld trembling before we even arrive. Krax hesitated. Admiral, what if nothing? Voss snapped. They're humans. Their greatest weapon is surprise, and we've just ripped that from them. By the time we reach Earth, they'll be on their knees. The fleet mobilized within hours, sleek Vorac warships sliding into formation around the Dreadclaw. Voss stood on the command bridge, watching the starfield ripple as the jump drives charged. Final orders, Admiral? Krax asked. Voss grinned, her mandibles spreading wide. Glass their capital, leave enough survivors to tell the tale. The ships vanished into the inky black, reappearing moments later at the edge of Sol's gravity, while sensors flared to life, scanning the system. Krax frowned. Admiral, Pluto's orbit is empty. No patrols, no defenses. Vosgrin faltered. Where are their ships? Then the alarms screamed. 1,000 contacts bloomed on the tactical display. Stealth mines, hidden railgun platforms, and cloaked drones erupting from the shadows of Charon. The Dreadclaw's shields flared as kinetic rounds hammered into them, each impact sending tremors through the hull. Evasive maneuvers, Voss barked. Return fire. But there was nothing to fire at. The human weapons were automated, scattered, untraceable. The Vorac fleet scattered, ships breaking formation as the unseen barrage continued. Then the comms crackled to life. Admiral Voss. Captain Lisa Hayes' voice was ice. Welcome to Earth's backyard. Voss snarled. You think mines will stop us? Well, burn your... The Dreadclaw shuddered violently. Krax's voice was shrill. Boarding pods, they've... The bridge doors exploded inward. Vorac Marines rushed into the corridors, pulse rifles raised, only to stagger as a bone. Deep hum filled the air. The sonic disruptors hidden in the walls activated, vibrating at a frequency that turned Vorac exoskeletons to liquid. Marines collapsed, screaming, their armored shells splitting like overripe fruit. Hayes' laughter echoed through the ship. You shouldn't have come. Voss lunged for the comms. All ships fall back, regroup at... The Dreadclaw's reactor core flared crimson on the display. Krax's eyes widened. Admiral, they've overloaded our... The last thing Voss heard was Hayes' final transmission. Primitives always beg before they burn. Then the Dreadclaw tore itself apart. The Vorac fleet emerged from warp at the edge of Sol system, their sleek black hulls blotting out the stars. Admiral Voss leaned forward in her command chair, her chitinous fingers tapping impatiently on the armrest. The tactical display showed nothing but empty space between them and Pluto. No human ships, no defenses, just the cold, dead rock of Charon orbiting silently in the distance. Scan again, Voss ordered, her voice dripping with contempt. These primates must have something here. The sensor officer's mandibles clicked nervously. Nothing, Admiral, no energy signatures, no weapons platforms, just void. Voss snorted, a wet sound from her respiratory vents. Pathetic. They didn't even try to defend their own system. She turned to her weapons officer. Target their lunar colonies first. Let them watch their precious moon burn before we... Alarms shrieked through the bridge. The tactical display lit up with thousands of red dots suddenly appearing all around them. What in the abyss? Voss never finished her sentence. Space itself seemed to explode. The first wave of stealth mines detonated simultaneously, their electromagnetic pulses overloading the Vorac ship's forward shields. The Dreadclaw shuddered violently as secondary explosions rocked its hull. Shields at Faye, the engineering officer screamed. They were hiding mines in... The second wave hit. Railgun rounds the size of skyscrapers slammed into the Vorac formation from Charon's surface, their tungsten cores glowing white, hot from atmospheric friction. 3 battleships vanished in balls of plasma before they could raise their shields. Return fire. All batteries target that moon. Voss bellowed. But Charon wasn't the real threat. As the Vorac ships turned their guns toward the icy world, the USN Atlantica decloaked directly beneath the Dreadclaw's belly, its massive spinal railgun already charged. Captain Lisa Hayes watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. Fire. The Atlantica's main gun roared. The hypersonic round punched straight through the Dreadclaw's weakened shields and tore a gaping hole through its engineering section. Atmosphere and bodies vented into space as the flagship listed violently. Boarding parties away, Hayes said calmly. Let's see how they like close quarters. The Vorac never stood a chance. Their boarding pods slammed into the Atlantica's hull, their warriors bursting forth with plasma cutters ready to carve through human bulkheads. But the corridors were empty, silent. The only sound was a faint hum growing steadily louder. Sergeant Crix, leader of the first boarding party, raised a clawed hand. Something's wrong. Where are the sonic disruptors hidden in the walls activated? The frequency was tuned precisely to Vorac physiology. Crix had just enough time to see his warriors' exoskeletons begin to vibrate before the pain hit. Their chitinous armor, designed to withstand plasma fire, offered no protection against the carefully calibrated sound waves. One by one, the Vorac warriors collapsed, their bodies liquefying from the inside out. On the bridge of the Atlantica, Hayes watched the carnage on her display. Seal off sections 3 through 7, she ordered. Vent them to space. The remaining Vorac ships were in chaos. Without the Dreadclaw's coordination, they fired wildly, some even hitting each other in their panic. The Atlantica's point defense lasers picked off missile after missile, while her railguns systematically dismantled the enemy formation. Voss clung to her command chair as the Dreadclaw spun out of control. How did they? Her communications officer suddenly screamed. Admiral, the human captain is hailing us. Voss snarled. Put her through. Hayes' face appeared on the main viewer, her expression calm, but her eyes burning with cold fury. Admiral Voss, I believe you wanted to remind humanity of its place? Voss spat a glob of acidic phlegm at the screen. You tricked us. This isn't honorable combat. Hayes laughed. Honor, you came to our home to burn our cities. Don't lecture me about honor. She leaned closer. My engineers tell me your reactor is unstable. You've got about 3 minutes before it goes critical. The blood drained from Voss's face. You wouldn't I? Hayes smiled. Welcome to Earth's backyard, Admiral. The transmission cut out. Voss turned to her crew, seeing the same realization dawning on their faces. The humans had rigged their own ship to explode. The Dreadclaw's reactor alarms began wailing, the sound growing more urgent with each passing second. Abandon ship! Voss screamed. All hands abandon. The explosion tore the Dreadclaw apart from within, its shattered hull spinning wildly as secondary detonations rippled through its length. The shockwave caught 2 nearby battleships, sending them careening into each other in a spectacular collision. Hayes watched the destruction unfold from the Atlantica's bridge. All ships fall back to Mars orbit. Let's see how brave they are without their flagship. As the human cruiser turned away, the remaining Vorac ships broke formation, some fleeing back toward the system's edge, others surrendering outright. The battle had lasted less than 20 minutes. Of the 13 Vorac warships that had entered Sol system, only 4 remained operational. Hayes opened a fleet-wide channel. This is Captain Hayes to all human forces. First wave repelled. Prepare for the real fight. She allowed herself a small smile. They'll be back, and next time, they'll bring friends. The crew cheered, but Hayes' smile faded as she looked at the casualty reports. They'd won this round, but the war was just beginning. She turned to her communications officer. Send word to Admiral Thalick. Tell him the trap is sprung. Admiral Thalick's command talons dug into the armrests of his throne, like chair as the tactical display flared crimson. Impossible, he hissed, his ventral vocal sacs pulsing with barely contained rage. The bridge of the Zapirian flagship Eternal Dominion hummed with panicked energy, officers scrambling to confirm the sensor readings. Confirmed, Admiral, hissed Tactical Officer Zix. 320 capital class signatures emerging from lunar orbit. Their energy signatures match, Admiral. They're using our shield technology. Thalick's crest flattened against his skull. The main viewer flickered to life, displaying the monstrosities sliding out from behind the moon's shadow. Sleek human dreadnoughts, their angular black hulls studded with weapons ports, moved with terrifying precision. Each bore the crimson insignia of the United Earth Stellar Navy. Battle stations, Thalek roared. All ships formed defensive. The transmission alert blared. Elias Vance's face appeared on screen, his expression calm. Admiral Thalek, I believe you were looking for proof of human technological capability. Thalek's tail lashed. This is some trick. Those can't be human ships. Their power signatures are a combination of Zapirian shield harmonics, Vorac quantum drives, and Earth metallurgy. Elias smiled. We're very good at improving borrowed technology, especially when no one expects us to. On the tactical display, the human fleet moved with eerie synchronization. Thalek watched in horror as their formation shifted, not the clumsy maneuvers of a young spacefaring race, but the practiced dance of veterans. Admiral, shouted Sensor Officer Craigs, the lead vessel, its mass readings don't make sense. It is too small for the US and Titan fired first. A single tungsten round accelerated to fake by its massive rail cannon, punched through the Eternal Dominion's forward shields like they weren't there. The round vaporized 3 decks before exiting through engineering. Atmosphere vented in screaming plumes. Shields at 0, screamed Zix. Hull breaches on decks 12 through. The second salvo hit. Plasma lances, reverse-engineered from captured Vorac weapons, but refined to twice their original intensity, sliced through the flagship's armor. Thalek was thrown from his chair as explosions rocked the bridge. The stench of burning circuitry and Zapirian blood filled the air. Return fire, Thalek coughed, pulling himself up by a sparking console. All batteries. The Eternal Dominion's main particle cannons swiveled. Just as 60 human fighters, their profiles unlike anything in Federation databases, streaked past at impossible speeds. They released swarms of micro-missiles that detonated against the cannon's focusing arrays. Weapons offline, Zix reported, his voice cracking. Admiral, the Stormbringer and Claw of Zoroth report similar damage. The humans are targeting shield generators first. Thalek watched helplessly as the tactical display updated. The human fleet wasn't just winning. They were dismantling the Zapirian armada with surgical precision. Ship after ship fell dark, their systems disabled, but crews left alive. A message, a mercy. Elias's voice came through the comms again. Admiral, I suggest you order your remaining ships to stand down. This doesn't have to end with more bloodshed. Thalek's crest flared in defiance. You deceived the entire Federation. These ships, this technology, how long? Since first contact, Elias said. We knew the Federation would never accept us as equals, so we waited, learned, built. The transmission cut to an exterior view. The Titan. Its rail cannons glowing with charging energy. Your move, Admiral. Across the battlefield, the human fleet moved into final attack positions. Thalek's remaining ships were surrounded, their shields flickering. The Titan's main gun hummed with building power, its targeting locked on the Eternal Dominion's bridge. Tactical Officer Zix turned to Thalek, his eyes wide with something no Zapirian had ever felt in battle against lesser species. Fear, orders, Admiral. Thalek's claws flexed, every instinct screamed to fight, but the tactical display left no room for delusion. The humans hadn't just matched Federation technology, they'd surpassed it, and they'd done so in secret. With a hiss that tore at his pride, Thalek activated the fleet-wide comm. All Zapirian vessels, stand down. The words tasted like poison. Cease hostilities and power down weapons systems. The bridge fell silent, except for the crackle of damaged consoles. On the view screen, the human ships held their firing positions, but didn't press the attack. The Titan's rail cannons slowly powered down. Elias reappeared on screen. Wise choice, Admiral. Your ships will be escorted to holding coordinates near Mars. Medical teams are standing by for your wounded. Thalek's crest flattened completely. You planned this. All of it, the mock battles, the supposed technological inferiority, even letting us attack first to claim moral high ground. Elias's smile didn't reach his eyes. We learned from the best after all. Wasn't it the Zapirians who taught the galaxy the value of strategic patience? The transmission ended outside the shattered viewports. Thalik watched human boarding shuttles approach. Their hulls gleamed with armor that shouldn't exist, their engines humming with power that defied physics. As the first shuttle docked, Thalik realized the horrifying truth. Humanity hadn't just hidden their strength. They'd engineered this exact scenario. The Federation had walked into a trap centuries in the making, and now the entire galaxy would pay the price. The feeds flickered to life across 1,000 worlds. Every screen in the Galactic Federation showed the same impossible images, human warships carving through the combined Vorac, Zapirian armada like knives through paper. Alien civilians watched in stunned silence as the invincible dreadnoughts of the two most powerful species burned in the void. On the bridge of the USN Defiance, Captain Blake watched the tactical display with cold satisfaction. His railguns had just turned a Zapirian battleship into expanding debris. "All stations report," he said, voice steady. "Vorac Command Ship Dreadclaw 2 is down," Lieutenant Chen announced. "Their escorts are scattering." Blake tapped his console. "Broadcast this to every Federation channel. Let them see what happens when they underestimate us." In the Galactic Council chamber, High Prelate Exarath's crest flattened against his skull, a Zapirian sign of terror. The holographic displays showed human vessels moving with terrifying precision, their hybrid technology shredding through shields that should have been impenetrable. "This is impossible," he hissed. Councillor Vexus's mandibles trembled as she watched another Vorac cruiser explode. "What madness is this? Those ships, their weapons." Ambassador Elias Vance stood calmly near the viewing platform. "You were warned." Zorath whirled on him. "Ceasefire. Demand an immediate ceasefire." Elias didn't blink. "You don't get to make demands anymore." Aboard the USN Atlantica, Captain Lisa Hayes watched as her Marines mopped up the last Vorac boarding parties. The aliens had expected easy prey. Instead, they'd found corridors lined with sonic disruptors tuned to their exoskeletal frequencies. The results had been messy. Hayes wiped a smear of greenish fluid from her armor. "Open a channel to the Titan." Admiral Thalik's flagship was still trying to regroup after losing half its escort fleet. The screen flickered to life, revealing Thalik's scarred face. His 4 eyes burned with fury. "You will pay for this. Human, the Zapirian High Command will..." Hayes cut him off. "Your High Command is currently watching their pride burn. I suggest you surrender." Thalik snarled. "We do not surrender to primitives." Hayes smiled. "Then die with honor." She nodded to her weapons officer. The Atlantica's main railgun charged with a deep hum. On the surface of New Vespar, a Zapirian colony world, civilians huddled around public screens. The news feeds showed live footage of the battle, and the terrifying sight of human dreadnoughts, glassing a military outpost on the moon of Krelis. No warning, no demands. Just a single salvo that turned the base into molten slag. A young Zapirian clutched his parent's arm. "They said humans were weak," he whispered. His parent didn't answer. The feeds had just switched to a new broadcast, a human captain standing on the bridge of a warship, her face calm but her eyes burning with cold fire. "People of the Galactic Federation," Captain Hayes said, a voice carrying across 100 worlds. "We let you underestimate us. That was your first mistake." In the war room of the Vorac High Fleet, Admiral Lyra Voss stared at the tactical map. Half her ships were gone. The rest were in full retreat. She'd seen human vessels take direct hits that should have vaporized them, only for their stolen Zapirian shields to flare blue and hold. Her comm officer hissed in alarm. "Admiral, the human fleet. They're moving toward the Cententrum defense grid." Voss's claws dug into the console. They wouldn't dare. But the feeds didn't lie. 300 human warships, their hulls still scorched from battle, were forming up around the Federation's capital. Counselor Vexus's voice shook as she turned to Elias. You planned this from the beginning. Elias didn't deny it. We learned from first contact. You showed us your strength, so we hid ours. Zorath's crest was now completely flat against his skull. What do you want? Elias glanced at the screens, where Blake's fleet had just obliterated another Zapirian battleship. The same thing we've always wanted, a seat at the table. Vexus's mandibles clicked weakly. And if we refuse? Outside the crystalline windows of the council chamber, the sky lit up, not with stars, but with the engines of human dreadnoughts moving into position. Elias smiled. Then we take it. The final transmission from the Vorac High Fleet crackled across all channels. Admiral Voss's voice, usually so confident, sounded broken. Fall back, all ships, fall back. But it was Counselor Vexus's last message that echoed across the galaxy. A single, trembling question, broadcast to every species in the Federation. What are you? The humans didn't answer. They didn't need to. The burning wrecks of Zapirian and Vorac ships were answer enough. The crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council had never known silence like this. The usual hum of 100 alien voices, the click of mandibles, the psychic whispers of telepathic species, all gone. Only the heavy breathing of terrified delegates remained. Elias Vance walked slowly across the central dais, his boots clicking against the polished floor. Behind him, 12 human marines in black combat armor took positions at every entrance. Their visors glowed red, their rail rifles still smoked from recent battle. Zorath's 4 eyes darted between the human soldiers, and the data feeds still showing the wreckage of the Zapirian fleet. His crest feathers lay flat against his skull, the Zapirian equivalent of sweating. Vexus had no such tells. The Vorac stood perfectly still, but his exoskeleton rattled with barely contained tremors. Elias stopped at the center of the dais. He reached into his pocket and produced the data chip, the same one he'd carried for 3 years, the same one they'd mocked. He held it up between 2 fingers, letting the chamber's light catch its edges. The terms, he said, his voice calm, are simple. He dropped the chip. It clattered against the dais, the sound echoing through the silent chamber. Humanity gets a seat, our seat, not as petitioners, not as junior members, as equals. He looked at Zorath. No more votes about whether we're ready. No more restrictions on our colonies, no more sneering at our ships. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. A tentory diplomat raised a trembling appendage. And if we refuse? Elias didn't even glance at him. Then the next fleet we dismantle won't be the punitive one. It'll be your homeworld's defense grid. Exorath's crest flared briefly before flattening again. You wouldn't dare. Captain Blake's voice crackled over the chamber's speakers. Try us. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the USN Titan hovering above the Zapirian homeworld. Its massive rail cannons glowed with charging energy. The vote took less than 3 minutes. Unanimous for the first time in Galactic Council history. No debate, no procedural delays, just terrified compliance. As the final sigil lit up, green for approval, Elias allowed himself a small smile. He turned to leave, the Marines falling into step behind him. Exorath blocked his path. The Zapirian's voice was barely above a whisper. How? Your technology was supposed to be decades behind. Your ships were primitive. Elias finished for him. He leaned in close. No, patient. Outside, the sky burned with new stars. Not stars, engines. Hundreds of them. The human armada, no longer hidden, filled the space above the council spire. Dreadnoughts the size of small moons. Stealth frigates flickering in and out of visibility. Carriers unleashing swarms of drones that moved like living things. Blake's face appeared on every screen in the chamber. This is Captain Ryan Blake of the United Earth Space Navy. Effective immediately, all Federation traffic within 10 light years of Sol will require human approval. Any military vessels entering that zone will be considered hostile. He paused. Welcome to the new order. The feeds cut out, the chamber lights flickered as something massive passed overhead, casting shadows through the crystalline walls. Vexis finally found his voice. "What now?" Elias adjusted his cufflinks. Now you learn, you adapt. You hope we're more merciful than you were." He walked away, leaving the council in silence. The Marines followed, the doors sealed behind them, and across the galaxy, 1,000 species began rewriting their histories. Humanity had arrived.